Hi, Dr. Stu here. Today we are going to make some dough, pizza dough, and I'm going to show you my method of making the pizza dough in basically one bowl. It's very simple, and just for the record, I started out using it by hand, then I used the mixer, then I used the food processor, and now I'm back to doing it by hand, and I think it's very easy. The key to the dough is that old dough is better. What I mean by that is dough that evolves slowly, has time for it to develop flavor, as opposed to a dough that you make in 3 hours on your counter and go ahead and throw it into the pizza oven. So what we're going to do is we're using an app called Pizzapp, P-I-Z-Z-A-P-P, and I printed up for myself the instructions by putting in how many dough balls, how much I want each dough ball to weigh, what hydration I want from my dough, and how I want to leaven it. So I'm going to be doing a 67% hydration, which means by weight, 67 out of 100 grams of flour in water. Well, water in flour. And then I am going to leaven it at room temperature for 4 hours, 2 at the beginning and 2 at the end. And I'm going to do 2 days, 48 hours in my refrigerator. So right here I have a digital scale, and in it I have 513 grams of water as per the app. And it's warm water. I say it's our water. It's really not that important because we're doing most of our fermentation slowly in the refrigerator, but if you were doing the 4-hour room temperature, you'd need to make sure it was about 80 to 95 degrees, which is what I call our water. I have weighed out my salt and my yeast per the instructions, and the first thing I'm going to do into my water is I'm going to take the salt and add it to the water and stir it up and let it dissolve. The next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding my yeast. Now I'm using dry instant yeast, which I find is the easiest to use and will cause you the least problems of having bad yeast. This happens to be available in the supermarket, Fleischmann's instant yeast. And we'll see that what's going to happen is just going to let that float on top of the water. Now there are other types of yeast that you can use, dry active yeast, fresh yeast, a sourdough starter, but for this purposes I find that this is very reliable. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to stir this, and you're going to see that yeast sort of dissolves into my liquid. If I had been using active yeast and it was dead, it would just sit there and float on the top. It wouldn't be good. Okay, so now my scale, I'm going to zero it because I'm going to start adding my flour. My recipe says I need 766 grams. Now I'm using a Caputo 00 Italian flour, and I use many different flours, and it doesn't matter, but the important thing is that you're weighing it, because each flour packs differently, and if you try to do it by measuring, using measuring cups, you won't be able to repeat what you've done when you get a good recipe. So right now I'm going to 766. And I'm reading it here on my instant scale. Okay, now, this is the fun part. I'm taking it off the scale, and all I'm going to be doing is using a little spatula, and what I'm trying to do is gently hydrate the flour, get the flour to absorb the water that's in this bowl. And I'm doing it in the bowl, and it keeps my house a lot cleaner. You'll see, it's very simple. Now the first step is not really to get a smooth final product, but just to get what I call a shaggy dough. And you'll see as the water gets absorbed into the flour, this dough becomes shaggy. So what we're gonna do is, we're just gonna mix this a little, and then we're gonna do something that works really well. We're gonna cover it and let it rest for about 15 minutes. And in 15 minutes, we're gonna come back and knead it a little further. So I've gotten most of this into the shaggy dough that I was looking for. And now I'm just going to stop and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Hi, 15 minutes have gone by and we're going to come back to our dough. It's had a little chance to hydrate for the water to get into the flour. And we're going to use this little bench scraper within the bowl, and we are going to just fold the dough, which is kneading the dough, and get as much off the side of the bowl as we can. And you'll see, we're gonna then put this, it's a lot easier to work with now because it's been hydrated for those 15 minutes. And you can see that this shaggy dough is smoothing out a little. And if you want, you can just take it and put it out on the bench. I'm gonna scrape as much of this flour off the inside of the bowl. And you could knead this on here. You'll see that the flour that's on the bench is gonna get absorbed by this ball, and all I am doing is turning and pushing, and I can feel how sticky the dough is. And I don't really want to change that. Now all I'm going to be doing is I have a bowl that this is going to sit in, and I have it labeled with what I'm using. The Caputo red flour. It's Friday at 12 p.m. I started. It's 67% hydration. I'm doing 4 hours of room temperature, 2 before and 2 after, and 48 hours of cold temperature. So when the 2 hours are up at 2 o'clock, this is gonna go in the refrigerator. And we'll be back tomorrow to divide this into 4 dough balls and put it back in the refrigerator. You'll see that later. Hi there, the dough's been in the refrigerator for about 12 hours, and we're gonna take it out and we're gonna divide it up into 4 balls and put it back in the refrigerator. I have these great little plastic containers so I can put the balls in individually and take out just what I need when I need it. So here's my dough, and you're gonna see it's much easier to work on this dough when it's cold. It doesn't stick as much. So I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna divide it into 4 pieces. And then each piece, I'm gonna take it, I'm just gonna work it a little to turn it into a ball. You see I'm folding it over and stretching it, folding it and stretching it in my hand. And what's gonna happen is that the dough itself is gonna get kneaded and smoother. An alternative way to do this, which may be easier than in your hand, especially if the dough is very sticky, is to do it like this on the counter, where you push and tighten and turn, and it makes for very nice dough balls. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these 4 balls and put them back into the refrigerator because they still have another 36 hours. Now, when I say 36 hours, they'll be ready and primed in 36 hours, but I can then wait another 4 or 5 days, just leaving them in the refrigerator. And when I'm ready to use it, I'll take them out and I will let them come to room temperature and then have about a 2-hour from there fermentation. Okay, so these 4 dough balls have been sitting in my refrigerator for about 36 hours. I have them nice and labeled so I know when I started. I started Friday at 12 and it's now Sunday at 12 a.m. and that p.m. and that was 12 a.m. whatever. So I want to talk a little about the last step. So basically what I do is I have these 4 balls and all I'm going to do today is take these balls, which you could see have spread a little. They're still cold. I'm going to pull them out and I'm going to knead them a little by reballing them a little. So once again, it's cold, it's easy to work with. You could do it in your hand like this, or you could do it on the table like this. And then I'll be putting them back in here, and I'll do that to the other 3 things, put them back in the refrigerator in about another 12 hours, they'll be ready to make pizza. So I want to talk about the flour. Now we only have a few things that go into it: water, flour, salt, and yeast. And flour, there's a wide variety of different flours, and I've used several different ones, and they vary between how fine they're ground. So like when they talk about 00, they're talking about the Italian flour that's designed for pizza, and it's very finely ground. When you're talking about 0, it's not ground as much. And then there are several other types of flour that vary in the protein. So like all-purpose flour is probably about 13% protein, and that's probably higher what they use when they make a New York style. And the Italian flours actually have a lower protein content. And so my advice to you is to use that PZAP, try a whole bunch of different flours that you can get your hands on, and see what you like. I could tell you what I like, but it doesn't matter. It's what you like. And I'll tell you that I like different flours for different style pizzas and different doughs for different style pizzas. So have at it. And we're gonna make a separate video showing how to take these and stretching them out, so you'll be able to see that. Thank you.